If any of you who are, like me, addicted to podcasts, there's a brand that you probably have heard, this next brand you've probably heard of, Policy Genius. It's a tech and finance startup that started in 2014, and its focused on, its mission is to make the painful process of looking for insurance, especially life insurance, a little easier. But one of the channels that it's been leveraging heavily recently is podcasting, and I asked Blaine Blaine Smith, who's the senior acquisitions manager at Policy Genius and has been with the company since 2015, to talk particularly not only about podcasting, because it's one of the venues that he's very familiar with, and also talk about the type of information he's getting back, the type of performance that he's seeing in podcasting, but also the benefits of being an early entrant into a new channel. There's been a lot of discussion tangentially throughout the morning about moving into new channels to acquire customers. Podcasting is, of course, one of the ones that's blown up in the last year, but what's there and what's to be learned about coming in and being one of the early entrants and learning by doing early on. So please welcome Blaine Smith.
Oh my goodness. There we go. Hi, everyone. How's it going today? Thank you for having me. Thank you to MediaPost, everyone who's organized this, the sponsors. This is my first MediaPost event, and it's been really, really fantastic. The kind of caliber of conversations and just talks that people have been really, really impressive, and I'm super grateful to be here. It's been a great day. To introduce myself, I'm Blaine. I'm the Associate Director of Acquisition at Policy Genius. We are an online insurance marketplace. And our mission is kind of to help people navigate the really complicated world of insurance, variety of insurance products, and personal finance as a whole. We help them get the coverage they need, and kind of only the coverage they need. That's one of our big things, is we're not big on upselling things. We are really about getting the appropriate coverage for what people need to, insure themselves and protect their family. And we make them feel good about it. We're really, really proud of our NPS score. So we have, I think it's currently 83 is our 30-day NPS score. It's consistently been well above 70, which is like double the average for the insurance industry. Most people are not super thrilled with their process of getting insurance, and we're really trying to ease that burden. So today I kind of want to talk through one of our success stories. So we've had tremendous growth over the past few years, but on the paid acquisition side, podcasts are a place that are really, really special to me. We've done really well there, and it's something that we continue to scale, and I kind of want to share some of that with you. One of the big aha moments for me as an employee at Policy Genius was, you work in a small tech startup in New York. There's a million of them. You go places, you go to meetups. Most people haven't heard of you. It wasn't until we've been on podcasts that was when people started saying, "Oh yes, I heard you on XYZ podcast." That was a big moment for me to have a name that people who are my peers were recognizing for not just my career, but just personally realizing that we were doing something special. So that leads to the title of the presentation, Podcast Famous, Unlocking Disproportionate Growth Through Audio Advertising. That speaks to the story I just told of feeling like we at least were a known name at that point. So kind of goals for the presentation today that I hope everyone takes away from this talk. If you're not very familiar with podcast advertising, or even if you are familiar, I've been doing it for a few years now, pretty well versed in it. I hope that we review some of the essentials and that you feel like you've learned something about the channel. But the other, I think, more interesting point is around we've been on podcasts since late 2017. It was a very, relatively early. It was kind of that, podcasts had been around for quite some time. Advertising on podcasts had been around for some time as well. But that was really the, key moment of when things really exploded in the podcast ad industry. And I think that podcast advertising is still good. If you haven't done it, you should try it. But also being on the lookout for that moment for other acquisition channels, I think is really, really important. It's something that I'm constantly looking for. I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to have what I think is the next thing to share with you all today. But keeping your ear to the ground about where people's attention is and where things might be underpriced or undervalued, it's really, really important because I think that there's going to be another opportunity in the next few years, I think. And then, so how are we going to achieve those goals? First, I'll give you a little bit of a history of Policy Genius as a company and when and why we started advertising on podcasts. Next, we'll do, kind of go through the, we've like scaled the podcast channel a lot. We've 10x our spend, since we started. It's one of, if not our biggest paid acquisition channel. It varies month to month, but it is a very high spend channel for us and something that if you'd asked me 4 years ago when I started, I would never have thought that like podcasts would be the place that we'd be spending most of our performance media dollars in 2019. And then what's next? As I mentioned, audio is still growing. It's still a good place to be. Podcast is growing. But I think there are other, I don't really like the term emerging channels because some of the channels are not emerging. They've been around for a while, but they might be the places that, if a lot of our other D2C brands aren't paying attention to or our big brands aren't paying enough attention to, they could be the place where the arbitrage is good and it was worth investing in. All right, so why did we start advertising podcasts? There's a lot of places. We all know that there are a million places we can spend our money. Lots of people trying to get our money. Everyone's promising different things. Why did we start on podcasts when we did? It was, we weren't spending, it was, like I said, we started in 2015. We weren't spending a lot of money on things still in 2017, and we decided to invest pretty heavy and early in podcasts. Why did that happen? Cool. So Policy Genius in 2015. So obligatory startup shot, that was it's not a WeWork, it's a Green Desk, which is an even worse, but probably profitable shared office space in Williamsburg. I actually loved that office. We had a great view of Manhattan, but everyone at the company talks about it like it was total trash. Anyway, so that was basically our company in 2015, except for the guy behind the camera, who I think was probably our CTO. So who were we? What were we doing? So we had 2 to 3 products in our online insurance marketplace. I say 2 to 3 because disability insurance was probably dark at this period. That was we had a New York Times article that sent us so much traffic we shut the product down, which was great, but a good problem to have. But anyway, so 2 to 3 products. Life insurance being our biggest one, still is. At this moment, we had spent $0 in paid media for customer acquisition. The reason for that is we had really good product market fit and organic growth. So similar to what the person from Bloomscape was talking about yesterday, we had a ton of content already, still have it. We promote that content and we rank really highly for organic keywords. It's still a huge growth driver for us. That investment has paid off for sure. But we knew that we weren't going to build the company we wanted to on that alone. So what did we do? We were trying to figure out where to spend our money. The same thing everyone's talked about. We definitely tried digital first, paid search and Facebook, namely. But we ran a lot of ads, ran some digital ads. And nothing really worked the way that we wanted it to. This ad, it probably looks fine to you guys. I hate this ad. This was our top ad in 2016. We basically tried everything, like, iteration to iteration. There was no brand behind this, in my opinion. Like, we had a brand, but it was not the brand that we have now. We landed on money. We tried anyway, the thing that led to this ad was not something I was proud of. And the performance, while I say it was best performing, it was not that good. It was not hitting our growth goals. It was not hitting our CPA goals. The company was still growing, but what we were struggling to do was to find, okay, we're trying to raise more money. If we raise $30 million, $50 million, where are we going to invest in the next year, in a channel that we're going to double, triple, quadruple spend? We hadn't found that. We were struggling. It was stressing me out. I had a new kid at the time. It was a dark period of my life. Then November 2016 came along. Everyone probably remembers that something happened in November 2016. It was an election year. And I think we just started hearing kind of like at events like this, at meetups, everyone started talking about podcasts, everyone that we were paying attention to. And we decided we're going to give this a try. So we built it out pretty quickly. And the things that we were hearing, the things, kind of hypotheses we had, and the things that have been validated since then is that the audience of podcast advertising is just so good. There is a natural, age element to it. Like there's some natural elements of the podcast advertising audience that fit really well with our product and what we were trying to do, which was bring the complicated world of insurance to, what I call an ancient millennial audience. And so that's just natural fit. So really, really a strong fit there. And the ad quality, right? I assume everyone's listened to podcasts. The ads you hear, people listen to them. You know, they don't. Yes, you skip them sometimes. I skip them sometimes, even though I like listening to ads now. But the quality and the integration is just so strong that the value of that impression, like calling it a CPM, doesn't even make sense to me, because the difference between a podcast CPM and like programmatic, it's not apples to apples, right? Like I know there's efficiency to be found everywhere, but we're not speaking the same language when you talk about a podcast ad listen. And then what we found specifically for our business is that the lead quality is incredibly strong. So as we've measured the podcast channel, which I'll get to in a little bit, so as an online insurance marketplace, we're a brokerage. We stay with our customer through the entire customer journey. Lead is generated online, and then we're selling them to all the way through to in-force. So there's a lot of breakage between that lead being generated online and the sale going through. And we learned over the years kind of the difference in how well does paid search convert, essentially lead scoring by channel. Podcast is second only to personal referral in the quality of the lead, which I think speaks to the engagement that the audience has with their podcast hosts. When you have your host, and people speak about it that way, it's their host. They feel very personally connected to the person reading the ads. It comes off like a friend telling you to do something, even if they're not endorsing it. And I'll get some audio examples soon of some of the hosts don't even really know what the product is. They're just joking, but it just works well and it's relevant. This chart is from an IID and PwC study that shows the size of the podcast advertising market. You can see kind of some growth, but relatively flat through 2015, 2016. Again, the election happened. It's not that it was just politics that has grown the podcast channel, but I think it definitely contributed. And then just tremendous growth after that. And we got a little bit lucky in the way that we kind of fell into it at the right time and place. And so I want to definitely point out that getting, I think, that kind of inflection point right before or right as something is really, really growing is a really good place to be regardless of the channel. So from there, we started investment late 2016, early 2017. How do we scale it? You need to be confident that the leads you're bringing in are quality, confident that you're getting good CPAs. Podcasts didn't have any digital measurement tools at the time. What did we do to continue to increase our spend month on month over 3 years? So the first is measurement. We use purely self-reported attribution for podcasts specifically. So this is a how did you hear about a survey. After someone completes the lead form on our site, we keep it updated with, you see a very long list of podcasts. It can be 60 at a time sometimes. I'm still amazed that I get no complaints from customers about how long that list is. I update it weekly, try to purge old ones because it's really important to me to keep it as short as possible, but as granular as possible. Other companies use a combination of, and a lot of you here probably do it, coupon codes, URLs, et cetera, to help track this. I wish that worked for us because we're selling insurance, which is like legally we can't offer a discount. There's just no reason for people to go to vanity URLs or put in a code. So we've relied on this exit survey. Luckily for us, I think because insurance is a fairly considered purchase and the lead form is long, asking this question at the end doesn't really upset anyone, and we have like 90+% completion rates on it with granular data. People are choosing podcasts and choosing the secondary dropdown. It feels very authentic. So that was what we've built on. So if you're going to do something like this, you need to have a way to measure it. There are several ways to do it, but definitely, like, if we hadn't had this survey live when we started podcasts, we wouldn't be where we are today because we wouldn't have known what was working as well as we did. So from there, how do we scale it? So we had the measurement in place. We started spending. I'll start with that is our, I hid the numbers, but our actual spend data from February 2017 up till almost now. We have 10x our spend, and it's been consistent growth month on month, except for that one weird dip in 2018 that I have to look back and see why, because that was strange to me. But it's been really successful. I think our CPAs are better than they were when we started. Like it has scaled and improved over time. I think we started testing around 20 shows at a time. You can go really broad with podcasts. There are a lot of categories. If you have the right measurement, you can really, really test through things. And so we test new every week. I'm testing a new, at least 2 or 3 new podcasts, if not more. And so kind of getting that rotation and that testing criteria down finding what works for you, and then expanding from there is really, really important. So this is where we'll go over a few things that I review when I go over podcasts. Two main types of ads: host read versus producer read and/or pre-recorded. So host read is your favorite podcast, either an ad break or just completely integrated. The host, his or herself, literally reads the ad. Highest quality, I'll pay double the CPMs for those, or even more in some cases. They are definitely a baked-in host-read ad is definitely the best ad out there. That said, like some podcasts don't offer it, and we still run those. They can be good. Producer-read is decent. It depends on the producer, but that'll be someone, not the host, but involved with the podcast, reads the ads because for whatever reason, maybe the host is just a celebrity or something. He doesn't want to be, messing up their personal brand by reading a bunch of ads. There are also pre-recorded podcasts now. They're getting bigger, where it's basically like a traditional radio ad that you're inserting into the podcast. And that's where dynamic insertion comes in. So there's two main types of placements. Dynamic insertion is more like programmatic ad buying. So they chop the podcast up, have the ad breaks, but it can be almost any ad played inside of that. And that's when it's more like a traditional radio ad. Again, not the highest quality impression, but if the rates are good, maybe it's worth it. But baked in is where the audio from the ad, generally host read, is part of the podcast itself. It can't really, depending on they can strip it out later if they want, but often you are on that podcast for perpetuity. So you got a guaranteed number of impressions, and anything extra is extra, which is great. And I see that some shows that are, news and politics are often very timely, but there are other shows that people go back and listen to for years, and having that baked in impression is a good investment that could pay off for a long time. So this is one of the more exciting parts. What were people saying, right? We've run a number of podcasts. I wanted to play a few examples for you here. The ads are great. People love them. You can read some of the tweets if you want to start the first. This is from Pod Save America.
Pod Save America is brought to you by Policy Genius. Many people don't know this, but September is National Life Insurance Awareness Month.
You know what? Following on the heels of National Will Month, there's been who said it? You know what? I feel like next year, guys in charge of Will Month and Life Insurance Month, let's put a month between them.
Well,
because August, September is dour.
It's a time to appreciate life and all the insurance it offers. We're not making this up. Before you revel in the festivities, let's take a moment to reflect on the true message of National Life Insurance Awareness Month. And that message is...
You could go at any moment.
The message is get life insurance.
Yeah, I bet it is.
The best place to get the life insurance that you need is PolicyGenius.com.
PolicyGenius.com.
They compare quotes from America's top providers, which can save you up to 40%.
Up to 40%.
Applying on Policy Genius only takes 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Less time spent searching for insurance means more time to celebrate the spirit of insurance. In fact, Policy Genius has placed over $5 billion in life insurance, and they don't just do life insurance. You can get disability insurance, renters insurance,
I don't like
pet
this.
insurance.
Pet
if
insurance.
You've been thinking about getting life insurance,
If you've been thinking about it.
check out Policy Genius. In minutes, you could save up to 40% on a new policy.
40%.
They can tear up your old policies to make confetti for the insurance parade. PolicyGenius.com.
Huh? Hey, whoever's doing this copy for Policy Genius, slip us a resume.
Yeah, all you other advertisers.
Yeah, take a
note
memo.
From Policy Genius.
Go check out what Policy Genius is laying down.
They have an important but dry product, and they have spiced it up.
They understand what we're trying to do.
They do.
We understand what they're trying to do, and it's a partnership.
And all I'm saying is others take note. So PolicyGenius.com, where every month is National Life Insurance Awareness Month.
Good for you, Policy Genius.
Love
That
you
was
guys.
a delight.
So that's one of my favorite ads that we've ever run. I think the tweet on the top is probably referencing that ads from the same time period. And that was when we kind of realized, okay, we'd been running podcasts for many months, but that's when I realized it was really special, that there was something really, really authentic about it. People were talking about it. They were telling us on Twitter they listened to the ad more than once because they wanted to. Really, really exciting, and that's when we kind of leaned into the channel. It leaned into custom copy for more partners, that sort of thing. And that ad, on its surface, it's very funny, but it's not a great life insurance ad. They stumble over the product words, like Lovett is off on a tangent doing whatever the hell he does. It doesn't. You might not think that that's like such a great read, but it's authentic to the channel. Like that ad doesn't. It wouldn't work on, another podcast, but it works so well for them and their audience. And that's when we realized we have to give people scripts that let them do what they do best. Because not everyone's funny, and that's not what works for their audience. If people aren't listening to a comedy podcast, they don't want to hear a funny ad. They want to hear something else. So Crime Junkie is another example. We can listen to that audio now. Much more straightforward, but sincere. True crime was a category I had stayed away from for a long time because I didn't want to come off.
Of my office job
we'll
was
listen.
our Employee Appreciation Day. Every month, we'd get an amazing catered lunch one day, and a talented baker would come in and bring these elaborate cupcakes and desserts, and we would play games and win prizes, and it was just a lot of fun. But probably not as much fun in retrospect, because it was only once a month and kind of a pain to lose a lunch hour that I could have spent listening to a podcast. So that was nice, and they also offered a complimentary life insurance policy for employees, but it was kind of limited. And I, for one, get super overwhelmed by all the options and terms and limits and just stuff when it comes to life insurance policies. And now that I have kids, I want to make sure that if anything happened to me, my family will be taken care of in the best way possible. And Policy Genius makes it easy to shop for life insurance online. In minutes, you can be sorting through some of the top insurers and find the right amount of coverage for the best price, even comparing any life insurance policy your workplace provides and helping you decide what else you may need and what you don't. So workplace life insurance policies are kind of like workplace luncheons. A nice thought, but there's a lot more out there. Head over to Policy Genius today and find out how to supplement your workplace life insurance and better protect your family. Policy Genius. It's like a buffet made of life insurance, and what could be more delicious than that?
So I like that ad because it's we wrote the workplace coverage copy. It's a very complicated message to get across, right? Like in an ad. Like I can't do that in social, not effectively at least, in the ad itself. But it's an important message. Like that's how a lot of our customer base is. They think they've ticked the life insurance box off because they have 50 grand or 100 grand through work. It's not enough if you have kids. So getting that message across has just been super, super effective. And I love that a 60-second ad or longer can do that. And we didn't write most of what she said. We gave her the topic, and she just got it and really, really expanded on it. And again, that's why the ad is good, because it's a voice people are used to hearing explaining the product to them in a really sincere way. Cool. So that kind of.
Pod Save America is.
There we go. We could have listened to that again, but we'll run out of time. So that is the reason why we've been on podcasts, why it's worked for us. But there is I want to know what's next. We're there's only so many podcasts I can run on that will work. We're still expanding, but it's going to cap out at some point. I want to know, how do we keep scaling it, and what else is out there? What is like what podcasts were for us 4 years ago? Is there going to be something that's similar? And that's something I think about all the time. I don't think it exists right this moment, but it will happen. So one thing is better tech. When I started on podcasts, I was actually shocked at just how unaddressable it was. I before I knew anything, I assumed there would be tracking like what is just starting to exist now, which is things like tying device data to an impression and then tying it to conversion. Didn't exist at all. The only way to track it was like you were tracking traditional media. Bought very traditionally with direct relationships with the shows and networks, and tracked either by just finger in the air or tracking on your site if you have it, but it had to be all internal. Now, finally, there are several partners doing what is similar to digital channels, where they actually they get the impression level data from the devices, from the networks, and they put pixel on your site, and you get reporting. It looks like this, that has the metrics you're used to seeing if you're running on Facebook, if you're running on display, if you're running on paid search, which is great. So there's pod sites, Verimetrics, Chartable are 3. There are probably more. I don't know. It's quickly becoming a crowded space. Someone's going to end up winning, but we'll see how it goes. But as of right now, I'm very, very excited about just that it exists at all, and we've been testing it out with some interesting results. I still rely heavily on our survey because that's what I'm so used to measuring against. But these are showing many, many more conversions, like several times more than what the survey shows. I haven't decided what I think is the truth yet. It's somewhere in between, but it's still really, really exciting to get this data point that ties the impression to the conversion. The other thing that's coming up is more competition. So this is from Magellan, which is another podcast tech partner. They actually they automatically transcribe podcast ads and then log them. But they look at major brands in the space. In April 2018, ZipRecruiter was the top, still is. The things I want to call out here are for me personally. Since we've started, there we go. 2 major insurers have started advertising as well. Geico and Progressive, huge ad budgets. What's great about podcasts is they can't be on the podcast I'm on, and I booked them before they did. So the exclusivity there is really, really strong. So while they're doing major brand plays, we don't have as much spend total as them, but I would argue that our advertising is probably more effective than theirs at the scale we're at. And that's because we've been very curated about the way we're doing it. But it's becoming a more crowded space, and it's something to watch out for. We have to be really, really cognizant of all the competition out there. And it definitely makes it, the barriers to entry are bigger for new brands trying to get in it, because podcasts have those exclusivity relationships. If you work with an agency or a network, if a similar brand is already working with them, you're going to have trouble getting in, which is why, yes, you should try podcasts, but definitely the lesson of trying things that people haven't, that maybe aren't as exciting yet, is a good thing to try. Lower ad quality. So we heard what I think are the best quality ads, host-read, baked in. This is from the same report I shared earlier, the percentage of baked-in ads versus dynamically inserted in the podcast world. It grew from 2017 to 2018. 2019 is actually bigger. There are more baked-in ads more dynamically inserted ads than baked in. This worries me a bit because I don't personally think the dynamically inserted ads are nearly as high of quality, and I don't want the channel to become too diluted by it. I'm not worried that much though, because it's not a zero-sum game. Like, that baked in is growing as a percentage because there are new podcasts being added all the time. So the podcasts that have been around that have the capability to do it, they know host-read works. They know that's how they're going to make the most money. They're going to keep doing it. So I don't think it's going away, but it is I would argue it's a different channel. Like, host-read versus baked in are very different forms of advertising. Both can be effective if the prices are right, but you got to be careful. Don't think you're not buying the same thing if you're buying DI versus host-read. Cool. So lessons learned. This is my final slide. The overall, the main takeaway I hope everyone got from this is that the early investing in podcasts are great. Try them, or spend more if you're not already doing it. But the early investment has really, really scaled for us, and I think that there's a lesson to be learned there of don't be afraid to do things just because not everyone else is doing it yet. Setting up that proper measurement is really, really key. So not only did it help us measure podcasts, it let us do testing the TV, radio, a bunch of channels that we would not have been able to measure otherwise. Having that tool in place, which is a very simple tool, right? It's just a survey, and a lot of you probably already have them. But anything new you try, definitely work through the measurement side before you even spend a single dollar against it, I would argue. And finally, this is my biggest miss at Policy Genius, is pay attention when people are talking. I mean, we're all here at a media event. That's what we're doing. But this is kind of outside of work. It was our CTO at the time, 2015. One of his icebreaker questions with me, so this would have been like June 2015, was, what podcast do you listen to? And that was a huge signal that I missed, which was a 30-year-old man right in our target demo at the company that I should have been thinking about it for, asking me, like, as an icebreaker, like, what podcast I listen to. That was the kind of thing that, like, if someone asked me that now for a new channel, like, I would be immediately at my computer trying to figure out how to make it work. So pay attention. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Blaine, thank you so much. We have some time for questions for Blaine. Questions? Yep.
Hi, Dan Kidd with Data Wallet. Just curious, what kind of reach are you seeing in the podcast audiences? Can you reach particular, older demographics as an example?
It's only by category. So, like, I know Pods of America's younger audience. The networks will publish and share with you what they think the audience is. They don't know exactly, though. And so I trust my gut on who do I think is listening to this, look at their social media, that sort of thing. What we've found is that we don't need it. We know we do well with like 30 to 45-year-olds, but we also have older customers too. It doesn't have to be a certain age. So podcasts, I don't worry that much about the audience. I worry much more about the host, the authenticity of the ads. Like I'm spending more time listening to the ads they read than I am worrying about the audience. Getting the price right? Like obviously the CPM matters, but the real moment for me is when I listen to a few ads. I'm like, yeah, we can do something that works here.
If the host reads are so much more effective than dynamically inserted ads, what are the dynamically inserted ads good for? You said they're good for different things. So
yeah,
what are they good for?
Well, the price can be right. So like I will, I pay a lot higher CPM for a host read ad because it's worth more to me. Like it can be several times more expensive, and that's fine. DI is good for, it's lower barrier to entry for both the podcasts themselves because they don't have to get advertisers. It's similar to like putting AdSense on your site. You say, here's where an ad can run, my network can place ads here. And then if you're trying to, like if you're a big brand trying to spend on podcasts, you can record one or two ads and run them programmatically across your audience. You're buying an audience, not an individual podcast. It can be both, but you're buying the audience, which can be really effective. If you get the ad right, if your product works well there, I think it can be fine. For us specifically, I like the host read because we're selling a very considered purchase. People didn't know who we are. They didn't trust us. Having that host giving us the personal referral, I think is really, really strong for us. That said, DI works for us in some cases, and I think it could be really good for some brands too.
How many relationships do you have to manage here in terms of, how often are you dealing with individual podcast companies? And how much are you working with how many networks?
So we work with, I'm running 80 podcasts a month and more. We work with an agency to manage the day-to-day work, and I recommend it in most cases. If you're testing podcasts, you can do it on your own, but just the clerical work of going back and forth to every podcast network is a lot. And the clout an agency has can help with pricing. That said, it's not really a requirement.
This is how I discovered you guys, is podcasting, and why I asked you to do this. Blaine, thanks so much. We're going to round out the morning by drilling into CRM and next generation CRM. To say that CRM is a strategy for D2C is a bit obvious because in many ways it's one of the ways in which the D2Cs have really distinguished themselves among brands, is their level of customer service and the ways in which they use CRM as a real channel to deepen brand loyalty. So to talk about the ways in which it's being used more strategically by companies, let me ask Jordan Cohen come up with his panel. He's the CMO of North 6th Agency. He oversees the agency's growth and drives the agency's thought leadership. Before this, he was with actually what used to be a frequent sponsor of ours. He was the CMO at Fluent from 2014 to 2017. So please welcome Jordan and our panel on CRM.
All right, awesome guys, so happy to be here. Thank you, Steve, for inviting me and our panelists. Thank you, Mr. Fadner. Ken, are you in the room? All right, hey, thank you, Ken. And thank you, John Whitfield, of course. As Steve mentioned, I've been a longtime sponsor. I've been to, I think this is my 15th Insider Summit, but my first D2C. And the other 14 were all the email Insider Summit. So I've spent the vast majority of my career on the technology side, in CRM, email marketing, direct response, so I know a little bit, I think, about the subject, but probably a little bit more about fishing and oyster parties and stuff like that through the years. But yeah, you guys do just a phenomenal job, so I just want to give a round of applause to the MediaPost team, too. Yeah, and just briefly about me, like I said, I've spent actually all of my career working for SaaS, MarTech, ad tech companies. This is my first time working at an agency. North 6 Agency, would love for you guys to check this out, n6a.com. We are the outcome relations agency. We do PR, but we're focused on what you guys are all focused on. We talked about in roundtables yesterday. It's all about driving tangible business outcomes, whether it's PR or anything else that we're doing in the marketing technology stack, and we're very acutely aware of that. I'd also say that the folks that we work with are most folks like you guys in the room. So the gentleman who kicked off the keynote yesterday, which was awesome, from Clorox, he asked how many big brands in the room, and he was surprised that a lot of you guys, even on the brand side, are really emerging brands. And when I look at our client list, what I'm really excited about and proud about is that whether they're in tech or they're in consumer. They represent the future of everything. They're really innovative. They're doing something new and different, and I love that. That's what gets me excited. And I think that a lot of the folks that I've met over the course of the past 2 days are working for companies like that are really pushing the envelope and doing really cool stuff that more consumers need to know about. Yeah. So with that said, thank you for having me. Hopefully it'll be well, I know it's going to be an interesting conversation because I spoke to these guys last week and we basically had a panel during the prep call. We were hoping to just record it and then just sit out there and just play the recording for you guys. But I'm sure you're in store for a fun and interesting panel. We'll leave some time for Q&A. Steve or somebody, just please let me know if we're like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to the end. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we could ask these guys questions because they have a lot of interesting experience and stuff to share with you guys. So, with that said, Lillian, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lillian Nicholson. I work for the family Coppola. Some of you guys might know it as Francis Ford Coppola Winery. I've been there about 9 years, and I'm our senior manager of D2C and hospitality. So I work at the flagship in Sonoma County.
Keith Peterson. I am head of brand marketing at iFly Indoor Skydiving. Has anyone experienced indoor skydiving? Raise your hand. Okay.
The brave.
Good amount. So I head up brand marketing, which includes CRM, which is why I'm on this stage. Prior to iFly, I spent most of my professional career with Red Bull on the consumer brand side. Without fail, people usually ask me 2 questions, like, did I drive the Mini Cooper with the big can on the back? I did not. Number 2, did I drink a lot of Red Bull? I did. My mother still thinks I'm going to die tomorrow.
Okay, but you're here, so it's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, cool. So let's jump into it, guys. Starting with you, Lillian. Tell me about CRM at Coppola.
Yeah, so I think to start, most importantly, the wine industry is a relatively new industry. Yes, worldwide, wine has been around for a really long time, but the wine industry really started in the last 50 to 60 years in a big way, in the DTC way in California. And even more recently, we're really just still growing our DTC businesses. 20 years, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was really complimentary tastings. It was really just trying to get your wine out there on the market. It was really trying to get people to know California wine. Fast forward to that, and now we have experiences and full-blown experiences. At the Francis Ford Coppola Winery, we have a swimming pool, so people can spend the entire day with us. We don't have overnight accommodations. It's really about coming up with your entire family for the day, enjoying our swimming pool, playing bocce. We have a full restaurant. We have tasting rooms. We have experiences. So it's all about, there's so much more to do than just a traditional tasting room. With that being said, though, it allows you to use your CRM in a lot of different ways. We absolutely have traditional marketing in the way we do wine releases, and you're sending emails out. We're sending email campaigns out. We do texting now. So texting is really focused on our local base. It's texting our locals about events coming up at the winery. We do everything from murder mystery dinners to pool parties to salsa dancing classes. So it's really making that one-on-one connection and inviting them up to the winery to experience something. We also use CRM in a big way, and a big part of my position is, yes, I use CRM in a traditional way and in a way we've been talking about a lot, but I also use it as a way to connect with our customers. Someone might Yelp us. We have physical space. The 2 of us have physical space, so we get Yelped. We have TripAdvisor that tells us how we're doing, and so someone might Yelp us and they had, let's say, less than a perfect experience with us. I will use our CRM to actually pick up the phone and call them and to invite them back, to make that personal one-on-one connection. I developed a grazie card. So grazie in Italian is thank you. Francis is Italian. So, and it says, we had the best day ever with you. And the card is just a flat card. It's mostly typed up. And I wanted to find a way to thank our guests for coming to see us. And so it says, we had the best day ever with you. And there's some space at the bottom of it. And our employees our staff can actually write a quick note. And it can be everything from, I hope you have fun at the beach this afternoon, or enjoy your cab for your 50th birthday party. It's just a really quick one line. They sign it, they pop it in the mail, and it's the way to use the CRM, to use the address that we got from the private experience when someone's booking online, to take it that one step further in a really easy way operationally to execute. So it's sort of that bridge between the digital world and the technology of it, and then making that human connection and pulling it into the physical space for us.
Cool. So for like a campaign like that, you're not selling that to just everybody. Like, how do you? So when we talked, you said when it comes to the database, quote unquote, get curious.
Yeah.
And like, what do we want to know about who, and who do we really care about? Can you expand on like who gets that personal note versus just like the standard email that I might get as a New Yorker?
Yeah. Well, if you come to the winery, I will send you a note.
Yeah,
But
I expect the whole. I'm going to the pool.
I send
I'm
notes to
doing the
New Yorkers too.
Yep.
So we do a number of private experiences at the winery. People can book them, and so part of the reservation process, we actually force you to give us your address. And so what we do with that address is we then would return it with the letter. Same with our wine club members. So a wine club is essentially a subscription. It's one of the first subscriptions there was. So Wine Club is a quarterly shipment where you get wine delivered straight to your doorstep. And with that, you get a number of benefits at the winery and online if you don't live close to the winery. And so when we have members come in, especially local members that see us a lot, we will sort of surprise them with a card. And the idea behind it is, when you have a really big database, when you have thousands of wine club members, you have thousands of people on your email list. I mean, we all get emails every morning. How many emails do you have before you even wake up every morning from a company trying to like insert your name in it or make you feel really special? And we all know it's just, you just delete. You have to figure out a way to take that next step and really make that personal connection with people. And so when they're coming to our physical space, we do have that benefit of being able to make that personal connection with them, but then following up with sort of that surprise and delight of making them feel like, wow, I was really seen and heard. There was thousands of people they saw, and they really actually saw me, and they remembered that it's my 50th birthday, or they remember I'm going to the beach. So it's about bridging those two things.
Cool. All right, Keith, I'll let you do some talking. So tell me about, no. I know, I definitely want to go a little bit deeper, so that was great, thank you. So Keith, tell me about CRM at iFly, and something that Keith talked to me about when we did our prep call was, he thinks that CRM for most people has like too narrow of a definition, right? A lot of us just think about it as email, and even when you look at like how the marketing cloud providers are building out, it's like email, social, right? Coordinate some text messaging or push notifications, and then 95% of it becomes email, right? So I'd love to hear more about your view of it and what you guys are doing it.
Yeah, so as Lillian was talking, I was just nodding my head a lot. I think we found a lot of common ground on our kickoff call last week. We talked about some channels and how we're leveraging them, but our conversation really gravitated towards the types of messages we're delivering and the types of experiences that we're delivering. So to echo what you said, like, yes, we utilize most of the platforms and channels that everybody in the room uses. I think because of the physical nature of the indoor skydiving experience, what type of experience we're delivering before you go indoor skydiving, and particularly after, is just as important as the types of channels that we're actually leveraging. So, we don't have like a membership program per se, but we were talking about one challenge that we face at indoor skydiving as it's actually incredibly safe, and I don't work in PR. I have no PR background, so I say that genuinely. But if you haven't done it before, there's a million thoughts that go through your head. It's actually not like real skydiving much at all. You just simply float on this cushion of air, and there's an instructor in the tunnel with you. So when I talk about how do we instill comfort, and how do we make people understand what's going to happen? One of the things that we've done is, instead of featuring the tunnel in a lot of our promotional efforts and a lot of advertising, it's tempting to do that, right? Like, our tunnel it's a cruise ship, and so you build a cruise ship, you want to talk about the cruise ship, but most people just want to know where the ice cream is on the cruise ship, right? And so early on, I think that we were guilty of wanting to talk to this $8 billion wind tunnel and it just wasn't effective. And what we found really effective is actually putting the instructor, so this world-class, highly instructor that is in the tunnel with you, helping you and guiding you. We've really injected them into everything that we do, so much so that we've been kind of doing some A/B testing with you, the flyer, getting an email from an instructor versus a machine or a bot, and we're finding that the engagement rates with those type of emails are just substantially higher.
Yeah, Beth, I was going to ask you about the instructors as the voice of the brand. Something you mentioned. Is there like a singular kind of figurehead, or is it like a bunch of different people who are like local? Like, how does that work?
No. I got to give kudos to Greatest Common Factory. They're actually here attending. John's in the audience. They led the evolution of our brand, and I love it. It's perfect. So our brand architecture is based upon the instructor, who we think of as just like this magician who is in the air with you, but also a coach who's, delivering hand signals and watching your face and making sure you're comfortable. So we just need to like double down on it. I think that we've done some things well with featuring our instructors, but I think that we finally found the right way to talk to people, which is the most important thing, of course.
Yep. No, so, and I think that also, again, referring back to like our opening keynote for the conference, right? Brand is part of CRM and brand being meaningful. So we also talked about, Keith, like you said, like Red Bull didn't have a CRM manager. Like you view that like everybody on your team has responsibility. Can you expand on like that concept, like the whole marketing team?
Yeah, and that was part joke, part reality. I actually think it's true. There's a lot of decisions made with the gut at Red Bull. I think. And not that we don't use data, and not to knock data, but I like the I forget the phrase that we use, data guided. I very much I love that. We're obsessed with data but I would say we're equally obsessed with the brand and delivering the best experience possible.
Cool. What do your teams look like, both of you guys?
So I oversee a team about just under 60 people, a team made up of different managers. I oversee lifeguards. So anybody else know managers of lifeguards? Okay, so I'm a team of lifeguards because I do oversee our swimming pool. I have a team of a great staff that does all of our reservations for us. So oversees reservations for the property, including all of our events, experiences, and then also the swimming pool. And then I also oversee our tasting room staff, so all of our wine team that does all of our experiences. So pretty diverse team. You don't always have tasting room team all the way to lifeguards. So it's a really great team, though. And they really, the one thing that we focus a lot on is, and we've talked a lot about culture today, we focus a lot about culture, not only the culture of the company, but the culture of our team. And then also definitely the guest. And I think that if you have a happy team and a happy culture, you will have happy guests, you will have happy consumers, because they're going to just naturally be excited about your product, and they're going to be naturally excited to help people.
I love that. I always tell people, like, one of the, I'm sure for all of you, like, as your career progresses, you've had like a boss who said like one thing that sticks in your mind. And when I was a junior marketing person at Epsilon, the CMO challenged me and said, like, who's your most important stakeholder to market to? And I was like, our shareholders. He's like, wrong. And I go, okay, prospects. He's like, wrong. And then he said, it's our employees first. And so, if they're happy, if they're enthusiastic, if they're brand ambassadors, like, the rest will kind of flow naturally. So that's a really interesting comment that you made.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I actually started as a seasonal tasting room associate at the winery. I got there, I knew nothing about wine. I'll be the first to say it. And I have so I'm on my, I think, sixth role in the last 9 years at Coppola. So our company is really about internal coaching and internal growth. So it's really exciting, too, for me to be able to now turn that around and, see the next team kind of grow up in our company as well. So it's exciting, yeah.
That's something else you guys should know about Lillian. She's spent her entire career at Coppola. Yeah. I've worked at like 15 different companies. That's the life of the tech CMO. Yeah. Yeah. So Keith, how about how is your team structured around CRM?
Well, we've got just like broadly speaking, we have a regional field marketing team. We have tunnel teams, of course. There's 10 to 12 individuals in each tunnel. We made, I think, the very much like the right decision to work with an agency, well, 2 agencies, including Greatest Common Factory. But we made the decision to work with an agency to handle our social media, which for us is one of the most critical components of CRM. When I just think about who's like the boots on the ground, drawing people in, asking questions, building loyalty, driving engagement. It's a person on our social media team at the agency. We just didn't feel comfortable expecting one person within the team playing the role of unicorn and developing content, and while at the same time managing the community. So when I think about, like, every single person, of course, is important to the team, but there's no one more important than what I would call almost an entry-level position, this person who is just engaging people, talking to people almost by the minute.
Cool. All right, so I wanted to ask you guys about, this is great, kind of giving us an overview. I want to get a little bit deeper now. So I want to hear about, like, your favorite campaigns that you've run during your tenure at these 2 companies. So favorite, and then also most successful, and how you define success. So Lillian, I think you were talking about this, you call it like the winemaker's dinner. Is that like your top thing? And tell the audience about that campaign.
Yeah. So winemakers' dinners in the wine industry are pretty common. You get to have that one-on-one experience with the winemaker. You get to really experience a new product or a new wine through food. So who doesn't love that, right? We sort of took it to the next level. So we have an annual event. So before I was in my role now, I was our wine club manager. So I oversaw our wine club. And that event that we had traditionally for years, we'd been doing it for years. We did a winemaker's dinner essentially in the vineyards. And we would build a full kitchen in our vineyards. Our culinary team and our chefs would go and cook a full dinner in our vineyards. We brought in a dance floor. We had live band go out there, and we had a cocktail hour. And it was really fun. It was a great event. And then members actually, so I don't know how many of y'all have been to wine country, but we have vineyards surrounding our winery, and we have what's called vine tags, and it identifies in the vineyard a varietal or what the vine is. So every guest that came to this particular dinner got to take a vine tag and actually tie it around one of the vines in the vineyard, and then that became your vine as long as you stayed a wine club member with us. And you could actually go visit your vine throughout the year, talk to it, say nice things to it, tell it to grow nice and heavy and healthy, and then when it was time to harvest it, you could go say hi to it. So it was just this really great dinner that we had. But when I was our wine club manager, what I saw was it was really impacting 150 guests that were going to that event in an incredible way. And how can you take that? How can you take it to the next step? So more recently with that event, what we've actually done is we've created a wine to partner with it. So the wine is called H Party. It's exclusively available to members only, and it's released annually in conjunction with this event. And so all the guests that are sitting at the table at that dinner, they all get to enjoy the wine right there. And then we send out an email campaign to our entire membership base. So if you live in New York, you get the email, you get to learn more about the event and sort of what happened with the event. And then in conjunction with that, as a wine club member in New York, you get to go online and have a special offer, ship some home to you. And you can also know the other wines that we may have had at the dinner or something about it. So it's really about bridging that experience, about having a physical space experience and then being able to make it virtual for people around the United States and to really be able to enjoy in your own homes and not just have a one-time sort of pop-up experience of 3 hours. It's really sort of creating that to be a bigger experience and a bigger impact.
That's awesome. How many of you are planning to visit Napa after the show and visiting Lillian?
Yes.
That's it? Okay, I think everybody. Yeah. No, I mean it's really. I mean, I've been to Napa a lot. I've never had an experience like that, and I'm coming, and I'm also adopting a. Sorry, honey, at home. I'm adopting a Cab Franc.
Okay, a vine.
Vine. Yeah, I'm adopting a vine for Cab Franc. She doesn't like it. I love it. Stinky. Sorry. personal. So same for you, Keith. Let's and then I have one more question for Louis, and then we'll open it up. I think. How are we doing on time? Are we good? Okay. So yes, let's hear about your favorite campaign.
Yeah. So I guess at iFly, one thing that we're incredibly guilty of is we do a really fantastic job talking to people who know what the activity is. We do a pretty crappy job talking to people who don't know what it is. In fact, like we have a good amount of people that will even receive a voucher, and because they don't know exactly what it is, they could receive it as a gift. It will go unused, and so one thing that we've decided to do as a company, and especially across the marketing team, is to evolve our ambassador program, which is made up of a select number of what you would call pro flyers, mostly kids who actually travel the world internationally. And they're all pro flyers, and while that's great, and there's a lot of equity that we get out of those relationships, they really appeal to other flyers. And so this past year, we actually signed somebody who is much more of a skateboarder, Michi Brusco. He participated in X Games, and so it sounded silly at first, and I got a lot of weird reactions internally when I told people that I wanted to sign a pro skateboarder who also flies, but he wanted to become a better flyer. Reason that we did that is, and I'll try and get this verbatim, on my first phone call with him, and I was puzzled myself to begin with, and I just asked Michi why he wanted to join the ambassador program, and he said, well, if you think about my activity skateboarding on a ramp, I spend half of my time in the air. And it just clicked for us, and we had a great relationship with him. He actually competed at the recent X Games and landed the world's first 1260, if anybody knows what the heck that is. It was pretty cool. Like for me, that's CRM. At Red Bull, I know we're getting short on time, so I'll go through this quickly. Back when Red Bull had a NASCAR team, actually two NASCAR teams, this was about 5-10 years ago. One of activation that I was a part of, we invited customers to submit photos of themselves. A lot of people submitted photos of their dogs for some reason. I mean, I guess I get. I think we sort of are represented by our pets. So we invited them to do that, and then we took all of the photos, and we actually wrapped both of our race cars with millions of photos of people and their dogs during an actual race, and it was a really powerful campaign.
Yeah, how do you know that it was powerful? Like, what were how are you measuring something like that?
I mean, just name a metric. It definitely spiked. I mean, sales spiked, engagement online spiked. I think we added something like 100,000 followers on Facebook the day of the race. So.
How do you come up? It's a cool idea. If my dog ever had Red Bull, I'm just trying to think about like the additional destruction that would occur in our house. Don't give Red Bull to your dog, or you're alive, so I'm happy.
I'm here.
How do you come up with an idea like
that? Well, it's really sort of ingrained in, I guess. And people have asked me, who works at Red Bull, and my answer was, well, it's not necessarily this. Yes, there's some incredibly smart people. I never happen to run into somebody from an Ivy League. It's just filled. The halls are filled with people just obsessed with delivering like impactful, progressive experiences to people, and I think that just lends itself to an atmosphere that is a really creative one.
Oh, cool. So. Again, I'm a huge fan of right brain in marketing, and I think that there's been so much like pressure in recent years, and it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys all feel the same in the audience. We're kind of like being allowed to be creative again. There's been so much pressure on like the money, like becoming like Moneyball CMOs, right? Data, science, math, and like if you lose sight of like the big ideas and taking risks and being creative, like you're not going to be as successful as the two folks I have up on stage here. So last question before we go to audience Q&A. Kind of elephant in the room is, California has been suffering through like horrible crisis with wildfires. Lillian actually had to we had an out of office, and we tried to set up the call because she had to evacuate from Sonoma due to the Kincaid fire. Lillian, can you talk to us about when there's like a crisis that directly impacts your brand, your entire industry? What has been the impact for you guys? How have you been responding, or how has CRM played a role in helping you guys kind of survive and thrive despite these year after year, in recent years, these fires?
Yeah, so let me ask everyone a quick question. Who saw on the news that California's had fires lately? Right. So what does that do to you wanting to come to California? Right. So, one of the biggest challenges is the perception. So just to give you guys kind of an idea of scale, the most recent fire that occurred really locally to us was in Sonoma County. I was evacuated for about 5 days. We closed the winery for, I believe it was 6 to 7 days. The fires were really rural, and so they were really in the area between where I live and where the winery is, and in between us in Sonoma County and Napa. And it was, we definitely had a loss of home. We definitely had a loss of structure. But I will also say that our local firefighters and first responders worked really, really, really hard to keep the fires from moving into the towns, and they did a really amazing job of that. These fires from where I am at the winery, you can't see them. You can't see the burn scars from them. They are definitely in the valley, and it definitely was widespread. But at the same time, it impacted, I would say, definitely less than 10%. There's statistics out there, definitely less than 10% of the Sonoma County. However, to all of you sitting in this room from all over the U.S., it seems like all of Sonoma County is on fire, and if you were to come and visit us, all you would see is everything's burned, and who wants to go on vacation to where everything's burned? And I can tell you that I live there, and it really does. The majority of the county really looks back to normal. So I think it's for us about the perception of that and just kind of changing the perception of that, and that's going to be a big piece of it. It's also really, you're talking about CRM, and there is that bigger perception piece of the puzzle, but then when you're looking to your CRM, when you're looking to your loyalties, it's really looking at your repeat customers and sending out the message that yes, we're open, yes, we would love to host you, come back and see us, purchase your wine locally, purchase Sonoma County wines locally in your stores. For our wine club members, continue to enjoy your shipments. There's also a perception, we are an agriculture business, and so the question is, will this impact the wine? Will this impact the grapes? People hear things like, really big words like smoke taint, and they're really worried that the wines aren't going to be as great. They're going to be excellent. We had big fires in 2017, and the 2017 vintage is now coming out, and these wines are incredible. So it's really about that messaging and getting the message out there that yes, we're open and these wines are going to continue to be incredible, and don't hesitate to purchase the 2017 or the 2019 vintages. They're still really wonderful wines. And then it's about really looking to your local base. Sonoma County as a whole has been really impacted in the last few years by these fires, and so really looking to our loyal local wine club members and our local loyal followers and saying, come on up. We've done things, I mentioned text, we do a lot of radio, so I'm looking to those things, and I'm kind of looking internally to that, so.
Right, Steve was telling me.
I saw Steve, he's like, stop.
How much time do we have for audience?
A couple of minutes, but we have to go to roundtables in a second. Anybody have any quick questions for the CRM panel? Yep.
Hey guys, Chris Miller from MIQ. What's your opinion on using paid ad channels for CRM activation? Is there a tasteful way of doing it?
A tasteful way? Sometimes. Hopefully. I mean, we like a lot of people here, we probably spend too much on Facebook. It's just, a necessary part, but I think it can be done. I don't know. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I mean, I think it's what I focus on specifically is really like the D2C, like the experience world. So it bridges a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I think it could be done. Yeah.
Keith, your use of the trainers and in the emails? Is it just sort of their face on the email, or do they actually follow through and take some responsibility for the relationship with the customer?
They do. A lot of times those conversations are taken offline. For better or for worse, instructors are commonly sharing their contact info. You can imagine that leads to some interesting conversations. But we wouldn't want it any other way. We do want that personal connection. So it's not necessarily, the email is not necessarily written by the instructor, but it is very much intended to feel like it did come from the instructor. But then the person can absolutely connect with that instructor if they want to.
Guys, thank you so much. We're going to move to a roundtable with this topic as well.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
So we're going to move to roundtable. Before we do a quick note, a lot of the activities are filled up, so if you